Oh, that was quick. All right, so I show that it's 6:30 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting to order, 6:30 p.m. on November 17th, 2021. Let's recite the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Okay, looks like I'm having internet issues. Can anybody hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, Kyle, I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, looks like we're having internet issues. It looks like Mr. Smith and Mr. Ricks are frozen in my screen.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I can see him just fine.
Oh, there you are. Maybe you just took a little throwing it out the buffer. Mrs. Combs, are you
Yes,
online?
I can hear everyone.
Awesome. All right, Mr. Smith, can I get a roll call, please?
Ms. Combs,
Here, present at my home.
Mr. Ricks,
Present here in New Mexico.
Mr. Smith, present for my home. Mr. Swayze,
Absent without notice.
Mr. Underwood,
Present at my home. That brings us to 3.0, modification approval of the agenda. Do I have any motions to modify or approve the agenda? Hold on a second before anybody says anything. Kyle, what were we supposed to add to this thing? I forget.
I thought everything was on here.
Oh, we were, okay, you wanted to put that off the next month, the handbook.
Yeah, the handbook's not on here, correct?
All right.
October count.
Say that
October
again.
count.
Oh, yes. I'd like to make a motion to add October count as action item 9.4.
I'll second that.
Thank you, sir. Any other motions? Mr. Swayze has just arrived. Welcome, Mr. Swayze. We've had a motion to modify the agenda to add October count as an action item. And we've had a second. Any other motions to modify the agenda?
No.
All right, hearing none, call for the vote, please, sir.
Ms. Combs,
Aye.
Mr. Ricks,
Aye.
Mr. Smith, aye. Mr. Swayze,
You're muted, Mr. Swayze. I'm going to stop my video, help the bandwidth, maybe.
Mr. Swayze,
He's muted.
Mr. Swayze,
Wait a minute.
Well, I hear you now, Ed.
Aye.
Mr. Underwood,
Aye. Motion carries. Agenda is approved. That brings us to 4.0. Open forum. As it currently stands, we have one person signed up to speak at open forum, and that is Mrs. Jennifer Bolish, who's asked to speak about communication, but I do not see her online. Am I missing something? So everyone else is can look at the attendees list, and I'm not missing anything.
I do not see her on there.
All right, thank you, sir. So then we shall move on. That brings us to 5.0 consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I
I'll make a
move to
motion to
approve the
approve.
consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. I'll take yours as a second. Mr. Ricks, call for the vote, please, sir.
Ms. Combs,
Aye.
Mr. Ricks,
Aye.
Mr. Smith, aye. Mr. Swayze,
Aye.
Mr. Underwood.
Aye, motion carries. Consent agenda is approved. That brings us to 6.1 board comments. I'm going to go first. So I wanted to say thank you to everyone that ran for the board. You know, we have this great representative republic, or a constitutional republic, however you choose to characterize it. And you know, we simply cannot function without people volunteering to do this job. And so I want to say thank you to everyone, all 4 individuals that ran for the board. I want to congratulate Mr. Swayze, even though he appears to have lost his razor, on getting reelected. And I'd like to congratulate Mr. Lippert, who's just like the rest of us, is having internet problems and is not able to be in attendance this evening, on getting elected to the board. You know, we'll do our formal hails and farewells at our special meeting on December 1st. But I just wanted to start that off, and I may have an alibi later on, but that was I wanted to say that so I didn't have to just come back and say, oh yeah, same thing as everybody else said. So I got to say it first. Mrs. Combs, anything?
I just want to say thank you to all of the staff and the administration and the parents and students for enjoying yet another year of having to go online for a bit. I know it has to do with a lot of flexibility, a lot of schedules change, a lot of scurrying. And so I just want to say thank you for having faith in us. We definitely, I know our district's goal isn't to have everyone online, but with the numbers, it was just something that was necessary. I want to say good job to our football players for making it to the playoffs. I know that their season had to end early, and that was a bit of a blow, but thank you. We appreciate you, and we can't wait for next year's season. And I just want to say thanks for all of the maintenance, for definitely cleaning all the buildings during this time, making sure they're doing all the proper procedures to make sure that when we do go back, I know they're working hard to make sure we go back to something safe as far as a safe environment. So just thank you again. You are appreciated, everyone. And let's just get through this next week. And then I hope everyone has a wonderful Thanksgiving. And I want to say welcome back to Ed Swayze. And then I want to say welcome to Mr. Lippert.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Swayze.
No, I'm good.
All right, Mr. Smith.
So, kind of echoing Ms. Combs, thanks to all the parents that have been understanding as we've had to go remote. And it's an interesting time. I know COVID's affecting a lot of vaccinated people also. Fortunately for some, it's less, but it's still out there, and it's just as problematic this year as it was last year. And we'll do our best as a district to try to stay in person. But when the need arises, we will have to flex to online, and just thank you, parents, for that understanding and that flexibility. And then thank you to the staff that are gone in there and during this time of no students, done an extra, as we would say in the Navy, a round turn on the building and getting that sanitized even more and a little deep cleaning. So when our kids do come back, it is ready for them and the staff to occupy our buildings. And again, congratulations to Mr. Lippert, Mr. Swayze. And look forward to seeing what the board and the district continue to thrive within Southern El Paso County over the next years.
Thank you, Mr. Ricks.
Yeah, I too want to thank our staff and also say congratulations to the football team. They put in a lot of hard work, a lot of dedication this year to get where they were. And I just also want to send sincere condolences to some of the losses we've had in the district over the last couple of weeks. Heart goes out to those families, and just know that we're all thinking about you, and hope everyone has a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Superintendent, sir.
Thank you. I also want to express our condolences to our two families. It has been a tough month. And our hearts really go out to you. So if you need anything, please let the district know. We're there for you. Couple of things to move forward and talk about. Ms. Cheeseman, Mr. Koopman, Ms. McFarland and I went to Kit Carson to evaluate them on a 2-day site review. Ms. Cheeseman was selected to actually lead one of the groups. She did a fantastic job. Mr. Koopman and I learned a lot, hopefully trying to catch up with Ms. Cheeseman on our 2-day SSR that we have in March. We really appreciate Ms. McFarland coming out to help out. We learned an awful lot, and we helped Kit Carson get better. The elementary had their parade and their trunk or treat. It was fantastic, lots of door decorations. Their golden apples were Miss Haley, Miss Booker. They also did an amazing race team building where they had to actually find clues up at Shields and race to try to find their final destination, which ended up being the golfing place up there, and a good time was had by all. We had the talent show that has been posted. If anybody wants to see that, our students were phenomenal. We want to welcome our 2 family advocates. We split that position between the high school and the elementary school. And they're going to help do some counseling on the side up for the other half of their position. We were able to secure 16 CPP slots rather than 12 from CDE. Preschool is starting STEM. And we want to say that Ashley did a fantastic job filling in for Chuck while he was out. So thank you very much. We are returning to school on November 30th. We hate being gone. This was a infrastructure situation where we didn't have people to get kids to school, and we did one day where we did a remote or a late delay, as the elementary school knows, just to run the buses in 2 sections. We ended up splitting up a bus into 2 smaller buses so we could have people run. And I really want to thank transportation operations for being flexible and working hard to make sure the kids could get to school on time. And then we started seeing 35% of our kids out and our staff out, and we just couldn't staff the schools. And so I also want to say thank you to our staff for their flexibility, our students and our families for their flexibility. This is a time for Thanksgiving, and I couldn't be more thankful than to be with the Hanover School District. And the effort that our team is putting in, the effort that our families are putting in. And I want to thank all of you. I want to let you know the monoclonal antibodies appear to be highly effective. In case you're interested and you start getting sick, and we do have the age 5 to 11 vaccines are available now. And if you got a vaccination more than 6 months ago, we've heard of a lot of breakthroughs. You probably need to go get a booster. So again, thank you very much to the board for your support. And thank you very much to the football team for the grace that they had on the day we had to tell them. They were gentlemen and they stood tall, and you should be proud. You should be very proud of the season that you had. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, so I want to kind of sort of have an alibi and elaborate a little bit on all that. So, I've heard nothing but good things about how remote learning is going, despite everybody's distaste for it. Parents, students, teachers, nobody likes it. But every time I ask somebody about it, it's going well, at least as well, if not better than can be expected. So thanks to everyone that is making that successful. Also, again, giant kudos to the football team for making the playoffs. And as Mr. Cooper just stated, having grace when they were informed that they couldn't play due to COVID. So, all right. Anybody else have any other comments before we move on? All right. I'm hoping that my computer isn't frozen and I didn't miss anything. So that brings us to the DAC report. So I'm going to assume, based on reading the DAC report, that Miss Alicia is going to give the report this evening. Am I correct? Hold on. I'm going to allow you to talk.
No, actually, I am actually.
Oh, okay. Well, you know what? Not the first time I've been wrong, especially if you ask my wife. It won't be the last. So Chelsea, please go ahead.
Okay. And hopefully it made it into the board packet. Apologies, Lori. I completely forgot until over the weekend. So apologies for that. Alicia, you and I will.
No, your DAC report's in there.
Yay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I can truly summarize this then.
Yes, please.
Okay. We did have a board member, Randy, come and talk with us. Thank you. That really helped clarify the DAC requirements and expectations from the board standpoint, as well as clarifying a few of the items on the bylaws, because it is very technical. We had Miss Moody come and present textbook options, as well as the cost comparisons for the history, civics, and psychology programs over at the junior high school. We are going over all of the info that she presented, as well as what she gave us to go over. And we'll be discussing it at the December meeting with a decision, hopefully no later than January, so that we can move forward both as a DAC and as you guys as a board in making some decisions. We elected Alicia as our new president chair. We only had Alicia as a parent there, so we'll be voting on vice chairs, hopefully next session in December. And as well, Alicia and I will be going over what I've done, what the bylaws are, and doing that transition hopefully in the next week or two, so that she'll be ready in December. Timeline review, we tabled that as we were already running pretty late, so we'll discuss that more at the December meeting. We were still waiting to hear about the remote status before moving forward on for the event planning, meaning the Thanksgiving luncheon, the Christmas events, as well as the drive-in movie. Now that we have an update, we'll discuss that probably in December and January. So we can hopefully have some fun district-wide events for the community. PHE could still use help on Friday mornings filling food backpacks for our students and families. So if anyone is available to help, it would be greatly appreciated. Along those same lines, the Kiss and Drop line at PHE, I believe it was brought up in the past about possibly board members, DAC members helping out with that. I have to say I helped out the day of Fall Festival, and it was awesome to be able to see the parents and the kids, as well as telling and encouraging families to come to the event and get involved. So personally, I would strongly recommend it, but definitely they could use the help. And the last item, kind of summarize as a lot of PHE updates and junior high school updates were given by Mr. Cooper. PTA at PHE is looking to partner with the PTSA at the high school for a district-wide cookbook fundraiser. The only reason why I mention this is the more times we communicate it, hopefully there will get more participation. What this is we'll be asking for recipes and sponsors from families and local businesses. The recipes specifically for the cookbook so that we can have a nice district-wide cookbook of our favorite family recipes and our favorite
Chelsea, I know that's only a mechanism for you guys to try to steal my chili recipe. Please stop.
You know, I could throw mine in there, but I might go with a different one. But yes, we're hoping to kind of gain some camaraderie amongst the district, as well as just encourage some more funds to go into fun events for the PTA and PTSA at the two schools.
Awesome. Is that it?
That is it for important business. Everything else was pretty much tabled because the meeting went an hour and a half plus over. So
Interesting. Any questions from any board members for the DAC? And for the record, Mr. Smith, Mr. Swayze dropped off right at the beginning of the DAC report. So, all right. All right. Thank you, Chelsea. Very much appreciated. Good
Thank
report. We'll look forward to the December report. All right, that brings us to 8.1, master plan walkthrough. Mr. Cooper, would you like to give us a brief summary, sir?
Absolutely. So Iconergy came out and we did a walkthrough with Iconergy, their engineers. We're looking at doing the master planning in two phases. They are doing structural needs for this First Best grant in February. Moving towards creating a master plan with community input for the Next Best grant and discussions about potential expansion of the elementary school. And we're going to want a lot of town halls and community input in that. I made a notice to CDE that we would be applying for the Best grant. That was due by November 30th, and they have been notified. So they know where we're coming through.
Awesome. All right. Any questions for the superintendent on that? So as a comment, I was there. Well, at least for part of it. And I invited Mr. Lippert to attend since he'll be a board member during this Best grant master plan bond vote cycle that we're looking at. And I thought it was a really good exercise. There were some things that I was not aware of as far as infrastructure needs. that I thought it was really beneficial that I was in attendance. So I thought that was great. And again, I want to thank Mr. Cooper for, coordinating that, and the Iconergy folks for being very detailed and thorough. All right, that brings us to 8.2 boardroom audio visual system request for proposal status. Mr. Cooper, please, sir.
The responses close on December 1st. We have had no responses to date. It has been advertised nationwide through that organization that you found, and they have it posted.
All right. Well, that's a little discouraging, but
It is. I did ask. I asked our previous group to put in a bid, and I will probably be contacting them again to make sure they remember.
awesome. All right, that brings us to 8.3 health and life insurance for part-time. So without going into very much detail, let's just say a recent situation brought this to my attention. And right now, as our policies and handbooks stand, unless you work 32 hours a week, you are not afforded the opportunity to engage in the health or life insurance programs that we have at the district. And I personally, again, I'm one of 5. I think if we're legally allowed to do so, that we should look into it. As Mr. Cooper and I had talked last week, it's $7 a month for the district to provide life insurance for an employee. I think we can afford that, and I think we should. And again, there's lots of details we need to look at. Do we have a different level of compensation for someone who's 20 hours a week versus someone who's 32? Things like that. There's lots of things to look at, but what this discussion item really is all about is, does the board collectively as a whole, not just me, want to go down the path of looking at this and considering this to be a benefit for our part-time employees? So that's why I brought it forward.
Can I make one statement?
Absolutely,
there?
go ahead. Please.
So we did some preliminary research on this, and we're not sure we can get insurance companies to underwrite that. I'm not saying that it's dead in the water. I need to have more conversations with our insurance guy and see what is possible, and kind of instruct him to look if this is something the board wants to pursue.
Right. And that's really what this is, do we want the superintendent and the business manager to take the time to investigate this? Because, it's obviously, it's time out of their day. So, thoughts?
Yeah, I would think as we look to be an employee-centric employer, and also as an employer choice for our area, $7 a month to give all of our employees, regardless of their time status, I don't think it's too hard an ask. And I don't know how underwriting would not underwrite an employee that we're asking to pay a premium on. As far as, and that's for life insurance. From the health insurance side, a lot of work was done a few years ago through BOCES to create a captive to provide quality, affordable health insurance for the rural districts. And at the time, it was partnered with a local provider, and it was only $69 for preventative insurance per person. And I think I would love to see the district that I'm part of as a constituent, because after this meeting, the next meeting, I'll be done as a board member. I'd like to almost see us take that bold step to actually pay the preventive care of all employees through that program. Because it'd be $69, which is a lot less than we're probably currently paying. And I would encourage the superintendent to reach out to Mr. Bazinski of BOCES to look at getting our staff involved in that for the next benefits year. Because it's my understanding that that program is saving districts quite a bit. And it's an opportunity to also engage our community, who are all eligible to be part of that captive and get their preventative health insurance for $69 a month. There's some other tiers in there and other options, but I think that's a pretty big bargain, $69 a month per person for preventative care. And that's my 2 cents on that.
You're stealing my thunder a little bit there, Mr. Smith, but I'm glad to hear that's your opinion.
Yeah, I was on this horse pretty hard a few years ago and it didn't work out for our district, but I do believe from where it's worked other places, it's definitely a sound option and a sound option for insurance for our employees, which is the most important thing, to be honest, is that our employees they're taken care of. But it's also the benefit, besides to the employees for their care, is that it would be a significant less cost to the employee in the district to provide that quality health care.
I agree. I would like to see us let any employee contribute and be a part of the life insurance. I believe that's important. I believe it shows that they're valued and appreciated, and it's their option. And whatever we got to do, see what we have to do to make that possible. But I like to see it happen. I support it.
Mr. Ricks?
Well, I understand there are a lot of feelings that go into it. But I see that we kind of have a small trend of, hey, this isn't going to be too much. This isn't going to be too much here. Not this other items like the meals for staff, meals for students. Now this, now that, and knowing that we've had 2 years of rather embarrassing financial audits. I'm all for moving forward to take care of our employees, but it would probably be the first establishment I've ever seen that has life insurance for part-time. And looking at it as a business, as we have to be good stewards of the finances, I'd like to see some numbers first.
Oh, absolutely. All this
don't-
is, sir, is to ask the superintendent to spend some time to get the numbers. This is not, saying we're going to do it, saying we can afford it, anything like that. This is just asking the superintendent to go get some numbers.
Well, I'll just, on that one, I'll just be neutral on it since there's already 3 that are for it.
Mr. Swayze, your thoughts, sir? Oh, looks like he's frozen. Oh, there we go. You're muted, sir.
I agree with Paul. It's a good idea. I love taking care of our staff, but let's look at some numbers, see what's going on first.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like I said, this is just about asking the superintendent to go run the numbers, find out what's legal, find out what's allowed, find out, again, like he said, what the underwriters will actually take on and getting us some numbers. So, all right. So unless there's any objections, Mr. Superintendent, go find out what we can do and what the numbers are, please, sir.
Will do, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. That brings us to 9.1 special policy update, second read. Do I have a motion to approve 9.1?
I so move to approve 9.1.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Do I have a second?
I second it.
Thank you, Mr. Swayze. So these are the special policy updates that came out of CASB. And as I mentioned last month, these are all fallouts from changes in statutes, and no other changes have been made other than the CASB recommendations. Do we have any questions, comments, concerns, or discussion? All right. I would like to note that in this policy update, BID and BIE, that's one policy with two names, allows for board members to be compensated. Can't remember the exact number. I think it's up to $120 per day when they are performing an official board function, like a board meeting.
150.
150. Now, I personally have no desire to entertain that. And as long as I'm on the board, I'm going to vote against it. But if other board members are interested in that, it simply takes a resolution, and it cannot be effective for the board that votes for it. So if we did that next month, it wouldn't come into effect until, was that December of 2023. So, but that is
For it not happening.
well, the legislature changed the statutes and it's allowed, but it still takes a coherent action on the part of the board to make that happen. So we have to draft and pass a resolution to allow it.
So as by doing nothing on that action, we are not supporting it, correct?
Right. So we're simply passing a policy here that allows us to, in the future, adopt a resolution. So as long as we never introduce or adopt a resolution, we're not getting paid. I just want to make that note. You know, for those people out there in the world that do pay attention, I just want everybody to know that we are not, by passing this policy, actually paying board members. It just allows us the opportunity in the future to pass a resolution to pay board members. All right. Any other comments on 9.1? All right, hearing none, call for the vote, please, sir.
Ms. Combs,
Just to clarify, we're voting to explore this option?
No,
Possibility to.
no, we are voting to approve the policy changes as recommended by CASB.
Okay, yes, then yes, yay.
Mr. Ricks,
Nay.
Mr. Smith, aye. Mr. Swayze,
Aye.
Mr. Underwood.
Aye. That brings us to IKF, second read. And IKF stands for graduation requirements. Do I have a motion to approve 9.2?
I'll make a
I'll make a
motion. to
motion to
approve.
approve 9.2.
All right, I heard Mrs. Combs come in first. I'll take her as a first and Mr. Swayze as a second. Thank you. So, I mean, you can read the cover sheet, right? A long time ago when the earth was green, state changed the graduation requirements, created an IKF 2. Now that everyone who is currently in the high school is under the new graduation requirements, there's no need to have two separate policies to detail graduation requirements. So we're consolidating into one, or not really consolidating. We're moving IKF 2 to IKF, and we're getting rid of the old original IKF language. And as also a note, in CASB core policy manual, they suggested this policy and an exhibit, and the superintendent and high school principal have opted to include the content of the exhibit in the actual policy as opposed to having two separate documents. Did I miss anything there, Mr. Cooper?
You did not. The main reason that we opted to put the exhibit into the graduation IKF, we feel graduation, the exhibit was what it takes to graduate, right? And we felt that that should be a 2-read board decision as opposed to just making the change on 1 read. We think it's that important that the board have due consideration.
It's fair. All right. Any other questions, concerns, comments, or discussion on IKF?
So at the time of the first read, I didn't fully understand the magnitude of what it would have on our seniors. And I know some of those items, regardless of a GPA would inhibit graduation. And I'm not really a fan of that. So I don't
Okay,
know,
so
knowing that this may
I
affect
think
me
there's a
personally.
point of, I think there's a point of misunderstanding here, Mr. Ricks. Those students who are currently seniors have been governed by these exact requirements the whole time they've been in high school. This is no change.
We actually eliminated 1 or 2 things that they needed for graduation, like the project-based learning. We tweaked that a
It's
little
not
bit.
harder. How about that?
Say that again.
It's not harder. The actual requirements, because you got rid of project-based learning, is actually easier. It's not.
Yeah,
We're taking away some
we-
things, not adding anything.
That is correct. That is correct.
So do you want to take another round of look at this, Mr. Ricks? Do you want to put it off for another month, or?
No, because we need to move forward for the rest of the students. I'd probably just rather abstain.
Okay. Do you, but I mean, that's a legitimate concern that if you honestly feel this is going to prevent some seniors from graduating, this change, then, I mean, we need to look at it more closely. I don't think it does. I mean, my understanding is that these graduation requirements minus the project-based learning have been the requirements since these current seniors have been in 9th grade.
No, agree.
wrong?
I just find it interesting. I just find it interesting that they wouldn't have a greater impact on the GPS or GPA on if they did not complete some of these projects per se. As in, let's say they don't complete any of those, we still have the grade point average to graduate, but we would hold them back to not graduate because they didn't go through with one of the many options. Just seems counterintuitive.
Are you talking about the menu of college and career ready demonstration?
Yeah, SATs and everything. If they don't pass,
Yeah.
which, the SAT doesn't affect their GPA, but if they don't pass the SAT or get to grade level or so on.
Those
That's just an
were in the
example.
previous. Those were in the previous. Those have been mandated by CDE and the State Board of Education. That's why we have those in there. And this class has been governed by those and those scores since they came in as 9th graders. That's a mandate from CDE and the State Board.
Step 4.
I didn't think this was any change.
That's fine.
There's
Um,
no change, but we're doing an update.
Okay, so, all right, let's explain the whole history of it. So we had a set of graduation requirements called the IKF. And when the state came out with the new graduation requirements, CASB called the new graduation requirements IKF 2. When the state passed the new graduation requirements, they gave each school district a choice of 2 years in which they could implement the new graduation requirements. We chose as a district the earlier year. And um, there was some confusion because the student handbook didn't get updated in the appropriate time frame and all that stuff. But anyway, so this past summer, regardless of whether you pick the first year of eligibility or the second year of eligibility, everybody that's in high school is governed by the new graduation requirements. And there are, like Mr. Cooper said, there are some choices that we have. We don't, there are some optional things. And in the past, we included the optional things like the project-based learning and whatnot. So this summer, based on the fact that every student who's currently in high school is governed by the new graduation requirements, CASB, for lack of a better phrase, rescinded the original IKF and then renamed IKF 2 to IKF. And we're just following that model of getting rid of the old policy that is no longer effective, right? Because we don't have any students that are governed by it. And renaming the old IKF 2 back to IKF. And in that update, the superintendent and the high school principal exercised some options that were available to them. The most significant one being getting rid of project-based learning as something that could give you credit for graduation. So
as a requirement, that
as
I
a
mean,
requirement.
yeah,
Right.
we
You
still,
can
you can still get credit for it, but yes.
Right. It's not a requirement, I guess, is exactly right. Is the right way to put it. So again, this should not have any impact on any student currently enrolled in high school. It should not. And if anyone believes that it does, then we need to have a serious conversation about that and table this.
So in that explanation, it just seems like a very unnecessary step that we need to take just as a formality.
It's really more of a cleanup than anything else. I mean, when we do our comprehensive policy reviews every 6 months, we rescind policies that are no longer effective. And so IKF, the original IKF, is no longer effective. It's, for all intents and purposes, we're rescinding it by adopting our new IKF2, or our old IKF2 is the new IKF. Yeah, it seems a little unnecessary, but it's kind of sort of what we do with comprehensive policy reviews anyway. But I'm really concerned if anyone believes that this really does affect the ability of someone who's currently enrolled to graduate, we need to have that conversation.
The reason we removed like project-based learning is we were gone. The last 2 years were crazy, and we just didn't have the opportunity to make sure kids could get through that. In essence, the board sets graduation requirements. They set the credits. They set the what you guys decide. This is what makes for a high school graduate. Where the state stepped in is they wanted a test to prove that kids had English skills and they had math skills. And that's what the whole menu of college and career ready demonstrations are. And that was really the whole revision of the IKF from the get-go, going back 4 or 5 years ago when that happened. So when Mr. Koopman and I looked at the requirements, there were some, we agree, 4 years of English. We agree, 4 years of math, 4 years of science, which, by the way, is not necessary in some districts. Some districts only require 3 years of math. Some only require 2 years of science. We liked all of those. We were fine with those, but there were some things that were in there that like project-based learning, that is nice to have, but it's not necessary
And it's
as a
little bit
graduation
difficult to
requirement.
do during the COVID year.
Especially when kids couldn't take it and it was more difficult for them. And so we wanted to make sure that these seniors had that opportunity. If the board ever wants to add that back in, we can have that conversation. We just felt that we could do project-based learning without making it a graduation requirement as a specific class.
Gotcha. Thanks for the
All right,
explanation.
so is everybody good? Are we good? Okay, any further discussion on IKF? Mr. Swayze, you've been kind of quiet. You good?
No, I'm good.
Mr. Smith?
I'm good. Just
All right.
essentially a cleanup.
Unless there's anything else? Anything else? All right, call for the vote, please, sir.
Ms. Combs,
Aye.
Mr. Ricks,
Aye.
Mr. Smith, aye. Mr. Swayze,
Aye.
Mr. Underwood.
Aye, motion carries. IKF's approved. All right, that brings us to 9.3 policy reviews. Do I have a motion to approve 9.3?
Make a motion to approve 9.3.
Thank you, Mr. Swayze. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. All right, so kind of sort of along the lines of our previous discussion with comprehensive policy reviews. Every 6 months, we look at our 15 oldest policies that haven't been looked at. And these are the 15. There are no changes to these policies. This is simply a yes, this is still what we want in our policy. So if you look through the documentation, there's no red lines other than the review date. Any questions, concerns, or discussion? Ms. Combs, you cleared your throat.
Yeah, no, I said I'm good.
Are you good?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, hearing nothing else, let's call for the vote, please, sir.
Ms. Combs,
Aye.
Mr. Ricks,
Aye.
Mr. Smith, aye. Mr. Swayze,
Aye.
Mr. Underwood.
Aye. Motion passes. Policy reviews are adopted. That brings us to 9.4, October count. Do I have a motion to approve the October count?
Make a motion to approve the October count.
Thank you, Mr. Swayze. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Ricks. So, I don't know. I don't know if this really need to be in action or not. It's just that me, as the president of the board, I just absolutely refuse to sign something unless the board approves it. The statutes say that once the October count is calculated, that the board secretary has to sign it before it's submitted. The October count is done, and I will pull up the email and go through the details. Well, I'm going to summarize. So basically, at the end of the day, our number is, so our total FTEs, our full-time students is 267. Our total count is 283. That accounts for the pre-K. So you got to break that down a little bit. So full funding, you know, what we get from the state ends up at 257. based on the way they count things, partial people or partial students based on stuff. And for the record, we budgeted 252. So that's 5 students more than we had anticipated. We can get into the breakdown of free lunch versus all the other different kinds of things. But at the end of the day, we have 283 students, and we're going to get a little bit more money than we expected from the state. Anyway, so that's why I brought it forward, because the secretary has to sign it. I don't know if it's necessary for us to vote on it, but I figured, it's safe, right? I mean, it can't hurt if we vote on it. I can tell you that many hours and at least half a dozen, if not more, staff members have been dutifully engaged in making sure the numbers are right, and that the underlying data that is used to calculate these numbers is correct. Ms. Cooper, anything you'd like to add?
I'd like to say thank you to Miss Lori for all of her diligence and hard work on that. I thought our number was actually 267 FTE versus 250 from last year. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, I'm looking at that, and I see the difference, but in the FTE full-time, it's 257.
I think it's that plus the CPP slots, but I'm not positive on that until I actually see the final numbers from CDE. So we have more. The question is how much more, and then we'll have to take a look at that.
Well, right. Right.
But I do want to thank Miss Lori for doing that, because that's a lot
right
of work.
now, it is. And so for those of you not aware of the process, so there's a software application where we have all the students entered, and we got to have them coded right. Like, are they free and reduced lunch? Are they ELL? All those kinds of things go into this count.
Because there's additional
And then,
money
of
for
course, also CPP. Right, because there's more money for those different titles and those different categories. Right. So I think, based on the last time I talked to Mrs. Petrikaitis, who was online, and maybe she can correct me, that line where it says 257, I thought that's where we budgeted 252. So, we could end up with 5 or 15 more. Oh, Pat, tell us the story.
What story? I was actually just looking at the one numbers that came from initial preliminary that came from CDE, and they're showing us up 1.8 from last year's funding. But that's not finalized yet either. So until we get the
1.8 students.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's because some of the calculations, the prior calculations they used for funding, they take the 5-year average and figure out where your numbers, depending on which 5 years or which 3 years out of a 5-year grouping that they use, give you the best set of numbers.
Right. So for those of you on Zoom, I've shared my screen so you can see this is what we're asking the secretary to sign off on. And so right here, this 257, if you can see my mouse moving around, that's where I was quoting the number from. So if you come down near the bottom, it says total count. You can see we have 26 pre-K and then 283 for the total. So again, it's all about, you know, ELL and SPED and a whole bunch of other factors as to where our money ends up at the end, high or low or whatever. But that's the count. So questions? Melissa, can you, oh, never mind, I'll mute you. Anyone else? Any other questions, comments, concerns, discussion? Did I lose everybody or something?
Nope, I'm good. No questions on my end.
Thank you, Mrs. Combs. Yeah, I'm having a little problem with my Zoom. It looks like everybody's videos dropped.
I have no questions.
And Paul shook his head. He doesn't have any questions.
No
Oh,
further
good.
questions at this time.
All right. Mrs. Swayze, you're good?
Yep.
All right, call for the vote, please, sir.
Ms. Combs,
Aye.
Mr. Ricks,
Aye.
Mr. Smith, aye. Mr. Swayze,
Aye.
Mr. Underwood.
Aye. Motion carries. October counts approved. All right, that brings us to 10.0 information updates. As always, thank you to everyone that fed out those updates. It was very informative and very much appreciated. Any questions, further comments? I know, Danielle, you got to say it. Go ahead. What's your favorite part?
I'm sorry. I don't have any comments. Thank you for the updates.
Oh, I think our internet's being hinky all around. All right. So, I guess I dropped the ball in that I did not schedule a separate Zoom meeting for our executive session. Do we still feel the need? We need to go into executive session, or do we want to?
Well, I was gonna ask you your thoughts on if we are planning on going back in person to school after Thanksgiving. What if we were to add or change it to that December 1st meeting of the executive session when we can all be in person?
That's not a bad idea. And then the new board member can kind of sort of see what we do in that. It's probably not a bad idea. So if no one is interested in moving to an executive session, then we don't have to make a motion or a second.
I kind of wanted one, but I really didn't.
Well, if you want one, Ed, we can do it. Oh, if you feel you need it.
I can wait till December. I'll wait until December.
December 1st, you sure?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Because we're going, like I said, that'll be the day after we come back into in-person learning.
Randy, you and I had talked about, how do I want to phrase this?
Breaking up, Kyle.
Sorry.
Oh, you broke up.
You and I had discussed talking about things that personnel issues that needed to be discussed in executive session so as not to tip our hand, for lack of a better, which is fine. If you want to wait, I would just like to get my people, I would like to get my people started on that. Yeah.
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we can do it. I mean, Randy.
All right, well then I'll go and very quickly.
It's just a quick, I mean, it won't take 5 minutes.
Yep, I'll set up something on Zoom and shoot it out to everybody real quick, all right?
Okay.
So I'm gonna drop off so I can do that. All right. So,
Before you drop off, we need point of order.
So hold on. I haven't dropped off yet. Do I have a motion to move it into executive session to discuss personnel matters and give feedback to the superintendent? in accordance with CRS 24.6 F.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Mr. Ricks, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Swayze. Call for the vote, please, sir.
Ms. Combs,
Aye.
Mr. Ricks,
Aye.
Mr. Smith, aye. Mr. Swayze,
Aye.
Mr. Underwood.
Aye, motion carries. We're going to move into executive session. I will send you all a meeting notice here in just a minute. Mrs. Board Assistant, if you could keep the meeting live.
Real quick, is this coming over as an email?
I'm not sure if it's text or email.
Okay.
It's my understanding to be an email.
Thank you.
Looks like we're still waiting on 2. Looks like we're waiting on 1. So I'm thinking to move things along. We're just going to proceed. Does anyone object?
No.
All right, the board is reconvened from executive session at 8:33 p.m. Everyone who was present before that is present now, except for Mr. Swayze. That brings us to other business. Do we have any other business? All right, hearing none, that brings us to action or agenda item number 13, adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Ricks. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Combs. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. All right, we are adjourned. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
You too, sir.
Happy Thanksgiving.